Good morning. This is a great day. I appreciate the time. We are a TPA, third-party administrator, servicing the public sector and the private sector, but we do a lot of public sector in the state of Minnesota. The purpose of today's presentation is to help you get a feel for MedSurety. I know up in the upcoming months, a number of you will be evaluating your TPA providers for VIBA, funded HRA, FSA, possibly HSA, COBRA, and retiree administration. So we wanted to take this opportunity to introduce ourselves. As you get closer to making those decisions, we'd hope that you consider us as an option for you. I know there's a large public sector RFP happening right now. We have participated in that in the last 6 years. We've decided not to participate, considering we have a pretty significant client base with a number of public entities in the state of Minnesota directly with MedSurety. And so I just want to start off about some of the challenges that we're hearing from our clients today. HR level call center support, being sent to a call center versus working with someone who understands the plans and designs that have put in place. Having to work through a ticketing system has caused a lot of frustration, and a big reason why we've been successful in working and partnering with a number of public entities. Multiple contacts depending on product offering or account offering, slow response to getting resolution, and a lot of unanswered questions sitting out there. I think a lack of familiarity when employees are calling in for assistance has been kind of a common theme. Where they can't get their answers simply, get a simple and quick response to how do they manage or use or best utilize their benefit. And then just unintended additional administrative, costs due to time requirement. The amount of time you and HR have to spend working with your TPA to try and get resolution to certain issues have all, started to add up. And we see a lot of activity now with cities, counties, and school districts looking for a new solution. So who is MedSurety? We started in 2017. We're a third-party administrator. We're located, I'd like to say, our world headquarters, but our headquarters is in Minnetonka, Minnesota. For those who are familiar with the cities, we're on the west side off of 494 and Highway 7. We primarily partner with your broker and consultant. So if you work with a broker or consultant, your easiest way to access us would be through them. We look to them for their guidance, their partnership as we work with you as your administrator. And we work with employers and public entities of all sizes. Some of them are 10, 15 employees, up to several thousand in the state of Minnesota today. But we work to just simplify benefit administration. Today, we're processing about 800,000 claims a year. We work with about 300,000 employees with some type of an account, and we work with over 3,000 organizations. Our mission, what we believe here internally and what we strive for every day, is to be the quiet administrator. We believe that we should be delivering clear, consistent, dependable benefit administration with that personalized support that you can trust, right? Should not be hearing from your HRA, funded HRA or VIBA administrator. Majority of the time, those things should, run smoothly. And then internally, our values, that we work with you on every day, our internal employees' belief is, to make, empower them with informed, confident decision-making, be innovative when we can with our products, and when legislative changes, allow us to make changes or evolve, simplify the process so that we can be efficient with this benefit. And then creating strong partnerships, right? Strong partnerships so we can create better outcomes. Outcomes for you to be efficient, for your employees so they're not spending their downtime trying to figure out a claim or get something processed or reimbursed, just making it simple. We've been around for 9 years. After the first two, so really the last 7 years, um, we've been really focusing on schools, cities, and counties. We understand that your budgets are always under pressure. You're always looking for ways to be efficient and extend that budget to as many benefits as possible. We understand that they're bargained, um, and so we're familiar with all those things. And over the last 7 years, really five and a half, we've managed to partner with a number of schools, cities, and counties. So this is a snapshot of who we're working with. These are all primarily Minnesota focused, Minnesota entities that are trusted brokers, and cities, schools, and counties have selected us to assist. So high level, what do we administer? For your active employees at VIBA 115, that funded HRA, a notional HRA, retiree HRAs. We see more and more now adding HSA as an additional account paired alongside the HRA, and then of course FSA and dependent care. Specific to retirees, that funded HRA, and that retiree billing. That retiree billing, that COBRA event retiree can also oftentimes get confusing for those employees that are transitioning. How do we simplify that for you? Kind of creeping up in the public sector, we've had a lot of conversations, is just affordable coverage strategies surrounded around ICRA, right? We've had a lot of discussions, a lot of reviews, and a lot of analysis. We've only had a couple so far, one county and one school that saw this as a good fit. We'll touch on some of that. And then some compliance assistance, right? How do we help with some of the things you're required to do? COBRA retiree, state continuation, 1094, 95 filing, PCORI fee filing if required, non-discrimination testing, and then when benefits are changing, a new POP document or Section 125 plan creation for your organization. So at the top of the list, health savings accounts. So if you haven't added one yet, or you're thinking about it, or you're in the planning stages of does this make sense, or does for our employees, does it pair well with our benefit offering? Um, you know, MedSurety's HSA solution, I think, is second to none. Online access, mobile app accessible. The mobile app does 99% of the things that you can do online, making it convenient for employees. And so you'll see all of your available balances. If you had a VIBA or a funded HRA, you'd see that account in here as well. But you can file a claim, you can create a transaction, you can view your investments. It's got an eligible expense scanner to scan items at the pharmacy or Target or Walmart or Walgreens. But at its core, the investment, there's 40 mutual funds that are pretty standard, best in class, picked for easy investing. If you're a little more sophisticated investor, there's a self-directed brokerage account that employees can open up, can pick from thousands of options, and some pretty unique ones as well. And there are no investment fees charged by MedSurety for that. There are trading fees, but no investment fees. There are online guidance tools where you can take a personal risk assessment. It'll point you to what types of mutual funds or stocks that you should be looking at. There's education around on how to invest and what's the best for you based on your age or your plan, and some recommended asset classes that they could be looking at. If you're a larger public entity, then we can do some employer 401k fund lineup matching. So the investment strategy is the same from their retirement, from their 403b to their lineup matching for their HSA, and then there's automatic portfolio rebalancing. So you can make sure that your money's invested at a certain percentage into certain types of funds or stocks, and you can turn auto sweep on. So if you wanted to have a certain set balance, you can set that balance amount. Maybe it's $3,000 or your deductible limit. Anything at or above that would flow into the investments at whatever percentage you predetermined it to be at. I think some of the things that make it easy for the employer, the public entities that we work with, is that for the health savings account, we do track um, maximum contribution. So IRX max contributions for the plan year or tax year. We want to make sure that the employee stays compliant. We kind of hit the easy button for them, just in case there was an over contribution or they made an outside post-tax contribution. Our system's going to catch it and stop it before they get to tax time and then realize that they're going to have to pay a penalty or process a refund out of their account. Administration, HSA can be fairly simple, but we know that a lot of our public entity partners do it a number of different ways. I think one of the most common for those maybe 100 or less participants is we're matching payroll within our software HSA system. As deductions happen on those payroll dates, we're pulling those contributions and depositing them into their HSA account. For those with a Ben admin system or are familiar with uploading their own contributions because they allow changes frequently throughout the plan year, we can set up open-ended HSA designs where your file is actually setting the contribution amount per pay period. And then within our site, in the portal on the mobile app, they've got direct links to eligible expenses through our HSA store, right? So they can feel confident about not having to worry that their expense is eligible and purchase items on the store that would be mailed directly to their homes. Flexible spending accounts, right? Traditional, everyone's familiar with these. Flexible spending account, limited purpose if you have an HSA, dependent care, park it in transit if you're in a metropolitan area. But all the rules and support and guidance that you would expect from your partner, right? Divisional setup for contributions or budget management, location, class-based, divisional setup. We can manage multiple payrolls if you had a variety of payroll schedules. And then, of course, the rules for the FSA, grace period, rollover, carryover, all at the available options. I think at implementation for FSA, just to kind of help eliminate some of that receipt request, some of that documentation that employees get so frustrated with, at implementation, we'll request any co-pay amounts that you have on your plan design so that when our system sees that transaction on a debit card come through, it's going to auto approve that. And then we do offer, recurring reimbursement for that orthodontia and dependent care expense. As payroll deductions happen, they'll receive their funds. And then smart debit card routing, right? So the card will hold multiple accounts on it, but when it sees dental or vision, it'll pay through the limited purpose. And if it's HSA paired, the medical will pay through the HSA account. So we can accommodate all of those things that maybe you're looking for or already have with those FSA designs or setups. So what's different? Like, how can you help us make this simpler, easier for our employees? I think it's around the claims. It's around the claims processing. We have gotten more efficient this year. Recently, 4 months ago, we did turn on AI-driven processing. We're looking at EOBs. So this is working on just on EOBs that are submitted. The AI claims processing can process those. It's today handling about 25% of those EOBs that are being submitted for reimbursements. But I think what's pretty unique about what we're doing now is one, for the co-pays, we can load them. If a debit card transaction comes through for that co-pay dollar amount that's been loaded under the plan design, it's going to auto approve it. But even beyond that, if someone did use their debit card, it was a valid provider, they haven't provided documentation, and when they do, and let's say the claim was for $85.35. Once we receive that matching documentation and it's approved, any future debit card transaction at that provider and at that exact dollar amount, $85.35, the system's going to auto approve. So if I'm going to a chiropractor twice a month, I submit the first one, I submit it timely, I get the documentation with it, any future, my next visit would be auto approved, and we'll move that way through the rest of the plan year. That's relieved tons of frustration for public entities around the state of Minnesota, along with the employee, right? They're not having to resubmit over and over for the same service that they're receiving on a regular basis. Dependent care recurring, claim. It's kind of an ease of administration. The most dependent care providers do not have an authorized card reader, so oftentimes the card denies or it pays out of the wrong account. So we recommend a recurring reimbursement plan. So they'll sign a form once, take it to the daycare provider, and have it signed for the estimated annual cost of the care, and submit it once. And then as their dependent care deductions happen, they'll automatically be reimbursed. So that's an option for them. Otherwise, they can wait to the end of the plan year and use it as a savings account, and then receive all of their reimbursements at the end of the year. I think another unique thing about MedSurety is that a big problem for employees and a big frustration, they're typically walking into HR's office, my debit card's not working, it's been put on hold, they're asking for too much documentation. So our debit card documentation request is a 40-day timeline. So when they swipe that card, if we can't substantiate with the transaction detail, the reader is valid at a valid provider, and along comes the service transaction detail. If that service transaction detail doesn't follow in the transaction, we have to request additional documentation, right? And then the clock starts ticking. Right? They get one notification at the time of transaction if we can't verify it, and then 15 days later they get a second notification, and then 15 days after that they get a third notification. So now we're 30 days in. And they get that fourth notification saying you have 10 days to submit the required documentation or your card will go on hold. And so they've got basically till day 40 before the system turns off their card. When our system does that, it spits out a report to our service team, and then we proactively call your employees to make sure they understand that they're receiving them, that they've seen them. Granted, they're not checking this information every day. They're just hoping that their money comes through. It's already paid and they don't have to do any follow-up. But we are typically, we're hired to maintain the integrity of your plan, to make sure they're used for eligible expenses. And so putting those cards on hold, making sure the documentation is submitted is what we're hired for, to keep that pre-tax benefit intact for you as a city, county, or school district. But we're going to call them. We're going to make it easy, right? If we have a phone number, we call them first. If we don't have a phone number that came over with their demographic file at implementation, then we're going to email them. And we're going to do that twice before the card goes on hold. And if we don't hear back, then the regular standard process moves forward. But oftentimes we get a hold of them. Oftentimes they hadn't paid attention to it or didn't know they needed to supply additional information. They simply upload it, and they can load it on their mobile app. They can go online and attach it and submit it. They can text it to our customer service team, or they can securely email it to customer service for processing. And then the hold's lifted, and they're happy again, right? And then similar, we have links to the FSA store, just like the HSA store, but the FSA store can be used for both FSA expenses and HRA expenses, eligible items. Expense that ran through the medical plan, it's eligible for the HRA reimbursement. What we're seeing more, though, and more frequently, is public entities adding the HSA option. And that can get a little much for employees if you have an HSA and a funded HRA and maybe even a limited FSA. And we help with a lot of that with education, and I'll talk about some of that. But I think one of the things that's unique, and we've helped a lot of counties and schools out with it so far, they've been kind of the early adopters, is that HSA HRA stack, right? So oftentimes when you implement an HSA, the HRA has to be limited to vision and dental. You can pick your contribution amount. Typically it's 100% to the HSA or to the HRA. Maybe you can do a 50-50. We can guide on all that. But typically for the plan, you're kind of locked that way. And then when the HSA funds are gone, employees have to rely on out-of-pocket expenses. Um, we've managed to put a design together where if we set the HRA can't be accessed when it's paired with an HSA until the participant or the employee has reached the IRS maximum. So once it's reached the IRS maximum, we can open up that HRA to again start accepting eligible medical expenses. So HSA for all expenses under the deductible, out of pocket, and co-insurance until they hit that minimum IRS requirement for single and family. Once they hit that, the HRA can then be utilized again. So they're getting the most value out of the dollars. So if they've saved HRA money, year over year for several years, and then you implement an HSA and now they can't access it just because they have an HSA in place, that really wasn't going over well for employees. And so we looked at it, we worked with our software. We can set that underlying deductible limit in there to the IRS or anything at or higher than the IRS HSA minimum deductible limit, and then bring that funded HRA back into the picture to assist them for expenses. Then again, coupled with our HRA design, they can submit claims with a mobile app online. Our AI claim processing will kick in if they're EOBs and get those processed same day. And then traditionally, we're processing claims every day. We reimburse every week. So people are getting their funds quickly. I think some key differences that we've heard of or that we get asked about a lot when a city, county, or school is thinking about changing is when we do have a funded HRA or a 115 trust or a VIVA, what is the employee seeing? Like, are they seeing 90% of their balance, or are they able to see 100% of their balance? And can they access that? And initially, when we first started our funded HRA, we were held to that 90% access, right? There was some kind of a train of thought that we didn't want them to overspend it. If they were investing, we didn't want them to go negative. If the market took a downturn, but we since partnered with a new trust and a new investment partner, and we're able to show for our HRA 100% balance with 100% access. So when the employee logs in, they're seeing all of their funds, they're seeing everything that's available, and they're seeing everything that's invested. So no more confusion. It kind of removes that from the equation. They're seeing exactly what's been contributed and what they have access to at 100% of what you're giving them as their employer or what they've contributed or what you're giving them as the employer. So all that's been removed. Also in their account, in their MedSurety account, they see their total balance, their cash balance, and their investment balance. So all that's available for them to see clearly and upfront. Now, if they want to invest, they do have to single sign on over to the HRA or funded HRA investment portal. It is a separate portal to invest, but they see all of those balances front and center in their MedSurety account before they go there. We also, for those employees that move or migrate over to retirement, we do have recurring premium reimbursement for retirees. So if you're with MedSurety, you've got someone that transitions from active employment to retiree, and they're responsible for paying their own medical premium, we can turn on recurring premium reimbursement for them to pay that medical premium monthly. So they no longer have to submit claims to get their money back out for an eligible premium expense. The HRA, HSA, pairing and opening that HRA back up, it's been a huge uptake with us. And then the return rate on the funded HRA is 3.9. It varies, adjusts quarterly, but it's, from what I've seen, the highest in the market, what's being offered out there. Again, we've had a lot of conversations with schools, cities, and counties over the last couple of years about the individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement. I'll tell you, it doesn't fit neatly into the public sector, but it's, there's some work that needs to be done, right? A lot of the public entities have collectively bargained benefits. There's a minimum value determined for what they should be receiving. So there has to be some strong collaboration between administration, HR, and the representatives, right, for the unions in order to have this conversation kind of start and take shape to evaluate, can this be a cost control solution for us? Sometimes it can't be, sometimes, it could, right? But if you are looking at this, we're open to assist with that discussion, do some analysis for you to see if this makes sense or not. But from our core administration, we help with a lot of the decisions up front. We help review all the design options and implementation. We create all the required documentation. We explain and have lots of communication, education materials to define the employee's responsibilities. It is different. The employees do have a larger responsibility with this type of plan option. But I think the most important is, how do they find the insurance now? They're not picking from two or three options that the employer are sponsoring. They have to kind of make their own decision and evaluate it. And so we have one-on-one policy placement advisors that help them do that, right? They're familiar with what you offered before moving, what you offered on the group side. They're helping them look at network, clinics, hospitals, doctors, prescriptions to make sure that those are all covered in the plan that they're considering. And then payment, right? For the most part, we pay the carriers directly. So from an administrative standpoint, it feels like group insurance. You get a monthly premium bill. We pay it directly to the carriers on behalf of the employees. But the employees still have to stay involved and kind of monitor their plan because it's individually owned. But we're paying direct. And it encompasses both employer contribution and pre-tax payroll deductions. So that tax savings is maintained. I think if we're talking to other ICRA administrators, I mean, I think kind of a must is an online shopping tool. Like, is there a place for them to just kind of review options, see what the cost looks like, maybe check network? MedSurety offers that. How do we educate employees? We have dedicated ICRA employee and employer pages that kind of walk them through their scenario at open enrollment. There's a few different kind of paths that employees are going to take. But there's written content. There are short videos based on, their experience and what they need to do for themselves and their family. And then paying the carrier directly. And then reconciling the payments, with the individual, the timing often is varied, employee to employee, carrier by carrier. So, having someone to, reconcile that is a big part of the ICRA administration. The one-on-one assistance, I say, is key. Having a nice platform for people to enroll on is one thing, but people are not used to making their own healthcare decisions. So if you're thinking about ICRA, I would say the one-on-one assistance is kind of a must, to help walk them through, looking at what they had before on the group side, and now what does the individual policy look like, deductibles, network, and prescription coverage. And then communication, ongoing education, information that meets them where they're at so that they have some guidance on what they need to be doing, I think is key. So here's a case study of a public school that we just implemented ICRA for. They've got 83 employees participating on the plan. They were facing rising healthcare costs, inflation, budget. Of course, they had $8 million district-wide budget shortfall. The health plan was renewing at a high rate. Premiums were going from $329,000 a year to $457,000 a year, and so they need to get some control over that group benefit offering. So they transitioned from fully insured group to an ICRA plan. They partnered with MedSurety, or probably wouldn't be doing this case study, right? But we handled the premium payments, the carrier coordination, the employee enrollment for them. The result, they saw a 40% reduction in total premium. The employer kept 37% of that savings. They pushed a lot of it over to the employees. The employees saw a 75% reduction in premium contribution cost. Um, moving forward, the renewal is a little bit more predictable. I mean, historically, the individual market's been somewhat stable, although in 2025 to 2026, probably saw the most aggressive increase from 1 year to the next that we have in the last 10 years. But the carriers are expecting that to flatten out next year. But in the end, the premium they were facing was $460,000 a year, with 311,000 of that being employer contribution, 150 being employee. Um, with the ICRA to get to similar benefit, they were looking at 225,000 in annual premium, 179,000 in employer, and 46,000 in employees. So a significant shift. But this particular, public sector group, they were working hand in hand with the union representatives. They first defined the benefit value that needed to be maintained in order to lay over a solution like this to make sure no one lost, right? So it's there. If you want to talk more about it, let us know. Cobra and state continuation, we work with majority of the public entities we work with. If we do accounts for them, oftentimes a year later or so, oftentimes this is done in-house, right? And so they're looking to outsource it. Can it be efficient? Can it be cost effective for them? I think once they've experienced it, it does become beneficial and allows HR benefit specialists to focus their time on other things, right? Standard Cobra state continuation, reporting the event, notifying the beneficiary, they elect coverage, we reinstate the benefit, um, we collect and remit that premium back to you, and then when coverage is exhausted or are not no longer needed or are not paid for, then we end the coverage, right? So in our administration, you would be responsible for two things, right? Terming active coverage and notifying us of the event. Once those two things happen, we kind of take it from there, right? The active coverage is terminated. We send out the notification. If they elect it, it comes back to us. We reinstate them in the Cobra subgroups or under the Cobra coverage for the benefits they elected. And then we collect and remit payments back to you. Once they're done, we terminate the Cobra coverage, right? On the retiree billing, we do a lot of direct and retiree billing for public sector. So we'll do the retiree setup. We establish the eligibility, the welcome and enrollment letters are sent out. We often coordinate with you to make sure that there are welcome packets introducing MedSurety so that they know who we are, and that if you were doing it internally now and you want to move it to MedSurety, who is MedSurety? Why should I pay attention to these letters that I'm receiving, right? A pretty key part in a transition. Or if you're working with another administrator and you move it to MedSurety, they want to know, hey, it's changing. This is when it's changing. Your last payment will go to the prior administrator. Your new payment will go to MedSurety. Helping with all of that, we've got template letters, communications. We often recommend that it goes out on your letterhead, maybe your envelope, or if you gave them to us, we'd print fulfill it. So a lot of ways to kind of help ease that transition. And then premium collection, collecting that from the retirees to make sure they're up to date. I think one unique thing is that we don't ever terminate the coverage if it's for a retiree. We reach out to them, we call them if we get a hold of them just to kind of confirm. Maybe they're traveling, kind of slip their mind. But we always, before anything, we contact you, the former employer, to make sure that we're not aligned and terminating someone that should stay on. Because oftentimes they don't want to lose their coverage. So I think the most unique thing that we've gotten positive feedback from cities, counties, or schools is that we combine that Cobra packet and that retiree election into one notice, one event. And in that event, we kind of clarify or call out which benefits are Cobra eligible and which benefits are retiree eligible. It simplifies the process for the retiree. They're not having to decide which packet do I select which benefit in, making it kind of more streamlined and an easy transition for them. Just simplifies the whole process. The public sector specific notifications. So all of our COBRA state continuation includes all the required peace officer, teacher, sheriff, firefighter notices in the COBRA state continuation notifications. Um, the elections, they receive as required by state continuation and COBRA. They receive the letters in first class mail at their last known address or the address provided. But we've also got a COBRA and retiree mobile app that they can make their elections on and set up their payments. Online and through the COBRA, retiree mobile app, they can set up their recurring payments. So if I plan on staying on the COBRA coverage for 8, 9 months, I can set it up with an end date and then review at that time. If I'm a retiree, I can set it up and let it run because I don't want to put my coverage at risk, right? um, but then also along with that is just kind of the centralized, management where we're managing everyone in the COBRA system. You have access to an HR portal where you can see COBRA participants as well as your retiree participants. That reporting is unified so that as you're reconciling carrier bills, you have access to it all. This is the accounts portal, so you're looking at a pretty robust. You can see enrollment, eligibility, employee management, pay periods, contribution amounts per pay period, and so forth. A lot of automated communication. So at implementation, we'll set up the standard reports that you need to receive. You and HR for enrollment and eligibility management. I mean, finance needs the weekly or biweekly funding notifications so they can reconcile. Um, there's over 56 standard reports that we can turn on some type of automation so that it automatically drops into your inbox when you need it. The employee portal, I think it's pretty intuitive. The employee is going to see all their accounts front and center, all their tasks up at the top. But they can file claims, upload receipts, view their balances, track repayments, manage pay expenses. All the things that you would expect from your administrator are there and available. Mobile access. The only thing I can probably start with this. The only thing you can't do in the mobile app that you can do online is add dependents. Right? I can add bank accounts. I can create an expense. I can reimburse myself. Um, I can upload claims. I can grab a picture. I can take a picture of a documentation and grab it from my photo album on my smart device or smartphone. Um, the only thing I can't do, and typically we're getting dependent information from you um, at implementation, but the employee could easily call, especially if they have a funded HRA or a VIBA, they could easily call customer service and provide that dependent information, and we'll load it for them, right? Kind of want to make this easy for the participant to receive their reimbursements for a spouse or family member or dependent. The debit card you can add to your Apple Pay wallet, your Google Pay. Um, the substantiation, I think combined is about 85%. It's probably 95% at pharmacy. As you get further out state, that might drop a little depending on if there's more privately owned pharmacists. Their card reader may not be set up correctly. But in general, it's about 85%. I would say 95% is pharmacist. And then clinics and hospitals kind of drops to about 65% to 70 auto substantiation if they have all their services categorized. But the debit card holds multiple accounts, right? So you could have your HSA and limited purpose FSA. You could have your HSA and your limited purpose HRA on there. If you had an HSA and an FSA, then we wouldn't put the HRA on the card, right? That's just a recommendation. but flexible, easy to use. If you do have a bin admin system, we integrate with several um, for Minnesota public entities. So Integrity, I know, is a big one with cities and counties. Benefit Focus, Employee Navigator, Ease. Um, so we receive file feeds for eligibility, enrollment, and contributions, and also event information from these Ben Admin HRS systems. So if you're working with one of these, we can accommodate that. So I think service is kind of where it's at, right? If we have the table stakes, we have the mobile apps, we have all the feature function in that mobile app, how are you going to take care of us? How are you going to make this easier for us to kind of remove this burden from having to be involved in it from day to day? Again, you should not be involved in account administration on a regular basis. Um, the biggest and what we get a lot of response to is the dedicated account management. Every client, regardless of your size, receives a dedicated account manager from MedSurety. So you'll have a name, phone number, an email address. They oftentimes reach out to you for information or changes or updates. But they're your main contact for any and all services you receive from us. If you contracted with us for HRA funded VIBA, FSA dependent care, COBRA and retiree, they're your one contact. They know the rules, they know the setups. Behind them sits a team of claim processors and enrollment specialists and eligibility specialists. But for you, your broker, finance, they're calling the account manager. They're familiar with your plans. They're familiar with your setup, familiar with the rules, familiar with your file feed vendor if you have one. It's a one contact resolution. Um, for employees and retirees, they're calling one customer service number. It's one email, um, and they're proactive. We push 1 hour response time with them, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But then proactive communication. We don't wait for issues to escalate. We try and reach out. We process claims in 1 to 2 business days so people get their funds quickly. And then we partner, a partner you can rely on, right? We understand budgets are highly constrained. You need to be able to be predictable. We oftentimes are offering 36-month rate stability, rate guarantees, integrating with your Ben admin partners, so you can budget and know exactly what you're up against. If you decide that you want to, talk further and you decide and we get to a point that you want to move or transition to MedSurety, we have a dedicated implementation team that handles that transition process from start to end, right? So the same team that are reviewing your current plan designs, taking down any changes that you may require, recommending any Section 125 cafeteria document changes that may need to happen. We send an online intake guide out to you. We ask you to fill out what you're comfortable filling out, and then we schedule a 30 to 1 hour call to go through all the details, contacts, plan requirements, classes, anything that's unique to you that we can capture so we can build that appropriately. Once that's done, we have a kickoff meeting to review the plan designs, answer any questions, kind of level check the timelines and next steps. And then we start to create your communications, right? Everything's customized and built based on the rules as you're picking them and deciding them. And then we provide those materials to you. Oftentimes they're PDF form, and oftentimes they're accompanied with a video or two on information that your employee population needs or wants to have. When we're ready, we receive the enrollment from you after elections have happened. We load that enrollment to you, and then we extract an enrollment confirmation report that shows here's what we saw, here's what we loaded. Can you verify that so that we're all on the same page to make sure we start off the plan year on the right foot, right? For the dedicated account manager, I just don't know if I can stress this enough, but the savings account administration, any issue resolution, I mean, we're not sitting here saying that issues aren't going to happen, right? They do pop up from time to time, but when they do, I think having someone in your corner that's responsible for reviewing it and resolving it, I think makes all the difference. Employee support, so they can reach customer service, of course, via phone. They can text message and they can email. Um, with that employee communications specifically, we provide a number of different resources. So fact sheets, frequently asked questions by product, eligibility expenses, by product type, and then videos, right? How do I file a claim? Quick 2-minute video on what that looks like. It walks them through their portal step by step, what button to click, where to go, all those things that you would expect that you'd be armed with to help your employees simplify this process. Customer service. So all of our customer service reps are cross-trained on funded HRAs, FSAs, dependent care, um, HSAs, COBRA, and retirees. So when they call in, they can get the help that they need. We do require a 24-hour turnaround. Um, uh, we do monitor all the voicemail inboxes, and they should be calling your employees back within 24 hours, answering those questions. We also do have email monitoring. We have a software running on our customer service inboxes that starts to flag those emails and call them out to our service reps whenever someone's approaching that 24-hour mark. That they should be reviewing it and providing resolution to those employees who are emailing in. That way we can stay on top of getting those answers quickly back to your employees and resolving those issues. Um, in fourth quarter, we were managing a 1% wait time, call wait for your employees. So they were getting to our reps. The we take about 150 calls a day. Typically in the fourth quarter, it probably jumps up to about 175. Actually, not in fourth, probably December and January run out periods. Employees have more questions about balances, need some assistance with getting reimbursed. That call queue starts to fill up in December and January. Um, but I don't like waiting on the phone. We don't like to make our employees wait either, or your employees wait. I think one unique thing that we offer that I don't know that anyone else is doing is that once we've built your plan, we load an AI life coach card into our customer service system. Um, so when someone calls and they say, "Hi, I'm David and I work for, the city of Duluth," or "Hi, I'm David and I work for School District 111," or "Hi, I'm David and I work for the county, Dakota County," it's going to pop up the AI live coach card for your public entity, and it's going to have all of your information that's unique to you. It's going to have your plan year. It's going to have the products that you offer, any of the provisions and rules under those plans that you're offering. It's going to have your annual contribution limits by class, so that our service reps are best armed to answer and be familiar with the uniqueness that you're offering to best solve or answer that question for your employees. We turned this on a year and a half ago, and it's just the satisfaction ratings have just gone through the roof because they're they're not having to hunt and search and pick. We pre-build it after the implementation's done. We change it after every renewal and plan year with your updates as contribution amounts adjust or rules change, election amounts vary. We update all of that so that we can best arm our service reps to give your employees the best information. So benefits administration, pain points that we've seen has been identified from our current clients. Um, employer pain points, ticketing system for issues, right? That the stick in the eye, right? That's really hard to deal with when you're having to submit. It goes into a black hole. Who's going to grab it? Who's going to touch it? Who's going to get back to me, right? Or even a call center support. You call in once, it's not resolved. You call back 2 days later, they have to find it. Who's been working on it? Hopefully the notes are good so they can resolve it. Um, MedSurety provides a single point of contact with a dedicated account manager. Faster resolutions, more streamlined. We're accountable with that account manager to make sure, one, there are no issues, but if something comes up, it's resolved. Um, Regarding the funded HRA, Viva 115 Trust, 90% balance accessible. We used to be that way 5 years ago. It wasn't ideal. Employees didn't like it. Our clients didn't like it. 100% balance, visible and accessible, easy budgeting, easy management, easy to plan for the year and expenses. Um, Slow response times as a pain point, unanswered questions. Uh, I think well-armed customer service team, less than a minute call times, 24-hour mandatory required 24-hour turnaround, timely answers, less frustration, happier employees, more value out of your benefit. Um, you know, Unengaged employees oftentimes comes from, ill-prepared or lack of educational materials. So customized materials, videos to help educate. It's a lot easier to watch a 2-minute video than read a document to see and pull out the fine points that you need to know. Um, but then just the ability to put, that expert guidance, pairing the funded HRAs with HSAs and FSAs, but still delivering the most value for your employees. You know, our expert guidance, our familiarity, our experience can help navigate that and help you position to receive the most value for your employees. So in general, I mean, I'd say from the beginning to end, right? Dedicated implementation team to make sure we get it right. All they do is implement. So they know, to ask about the rules, any uniqueness, any classes, Ben admin system, HRIS. That's what they do is implement. They do it all year long, every year, year over year. Um, Onboarding and training, we walk you through as the HR team or if finance wants to join, how to best utilize that portal. We review reporting to identify what you need and at what intervals or what cadence, and then that tailored experience of dedicated support, right? Popping up those roles so that they're armed to handle your employees, and then we're looking for a long-term partnership, right? This stuff is not the most expensive benefit you offer your employees, but it can be the most disruptive. It's the first thing they interact with if they're in their deductible or if they're in their core insurance, right? So you look to a partner who can help quiet that down, make it work, right? Do it right. We don't need to spend our time on that. It's our least, probably one of our lowest spends in our benefit package. Like, please make it run smoothly. That's what we want to be. We want to be that partner for you. One of our clients, wrote this for us for these. We've got a couple of these webinars coming up here in the next few weeks as public entities are making decisions for 7/1, 9/1, and 1/1 this year. But Lakeville Public Schools said our school district has received excellent service from MedSurety, particularly with our FSA and HRA accounts. Their team managed the accounts accurately and independently, allowing me to take a hands-off approach and focus on higher priority benefit management responsibilities. MedSurety handles staff inquiries, password issues, claims efficiency, eliminating the need for my involvement. I confidently refer staff to MedSurety, knowing their customer service team is responsive, friendly, and consistently maintains a short wait time. Issues requiring my involvement are rare. However, when they do arise, our account managers are consistently responsive, helpful, and maintain strong professional working relationship as our dedicated account team. Now, the person that wrote this is a day-to-day, benefit specialist, like a supervisor of the specialist team for Lakeville. So she's in it every day. She's dealing with employee questions. She's dealing with our team. So I just wanted to share that about their experience.